What is up, you guys? Welcome to my channel. If you guys are new here, my name is Devin, and today I want to talk to you guys about one drone accessory that you should definitely have in your camera bag. Now, in some of my previous videos, I talk about getting a cinematic look to your footage using the Mavic Air 2, and it applies to pretty much any camera, but we're gonna be talking about the Mavic Air 2. And if you wanna watch that video, I will link it down in the description below, and I'll leave a thumbnail at the end of this video. To get cinematic looking footage, you always want to try to shoot at a shutter speed double your frame rate. So if you are shooting in 24 frames per second and you're gonna be editing on a 24 frame timeline, then you wanna be shooting with a shutter speed of 48. And if you're shooting 60 frames per second, you wanna be shooting at a shutter speed of 120. But sometimes when you do this, your scene is still gonna be too bright. You're gonna end up doing what they call overcranking your shutter speed, and that just means setting that to 200, 300, and 400, and your footage doesn't look quite as smooth. But to get that cinematic looking footage that everybody wants to shoot, you actually have to be able to control your light. And one way to do that is using an ND filter. What an ND filter does is it helps you control the amount of light that is traveling through your lens into your sensor on your camera. No matter if you're using a drone or a DSLR or whatever it may be, that is primarily what an ND filter is doing. Now, with the Mavic Air 2 Fly More combo, it comes with a 3-pack of ND filters. So if you got the Fly More combo with your Mavic Air 2, it comes with 3 ND filters. You get ND 16, 64, and 256. Until recently, I have been using the ND filters that DJI sent with the Fly More combo. You can use the 256 and 64 to get creative with maybe some long exposure photography. It is too dark for most video, and honestly even the ND 16 is too dark for most video, especially if you're shooting in 4K 60. When it's too dark, due to the ND filter, I had to bump up my ISO, and it didn't give me footage that I was extremely excited about. But then if I took the ND filter off and using my shutter speed of double my frame rate, so if I was shooting at 4K 60 and my shutter speed was at 120, my scene was still too bright. And so that's where an ND filter is needed, but in this case, the 16 was actually still too dark. PGYTECH sent me a variable ND filter, and this thing is sweet. Pretty much all the footage that I've been shooting, I've been able to dial in the perfect exposure with this filter. Like that's how good it is. I can keep my ISO as low as possible. I can set my shutter speed to exactly where I want it. This one is a variable ND 2 to 5 stops, which basically means if you're down at 2, it's gonna let in the most amount of light. And then if you are at 5, it's gonna let in the least amount of light. And you can dial that in exactly where you want it by just twisting the front element on this. So before I take off for most flights now, I just set the drone down, I set my frame rate, I set my shutter speed, make sure that my ISO is as low as possible, and then I just twist that front element until everything looks perfect. I double check and I use my histogram, and then I'll turn on my overexposure warnings, and then I usually turn those off because they're kind of annoying to me. And I'm extremely excited with the footage that I'm getting. So if you are looking to achieve the most cinematic, best looking footage out of your Mavic Air 2, I highly recommend getting a variable ND filter. And honestly, this PGYTECH one is excellent. It's a really, really helpful tool that I recommend any filmmaker adding to their bag. So with that, that is it for this video, guys. A huge thanks goes out to PGYTECH for sending me some gear to try out on the Mavic Air 2. If you guys liked this video or found it helpful in any way, please leave it a thumbs up. It helps my channel out. Subscribe if you like this kind of content. And yeah, I will see you guys in another video.